In a world where identity is both a choice and a consequence, there are few stories that explore it more deeply than Ifemelu's. Americanah is not just a story of love and loss, but a journey of self-discovery, navigating the complexities of race, belonging, and what it truly means to call a place home. Ifemelu's tale is both personal and universal, a reflection of the immigrant experience, the ties that bind us to our roots, and the identities we must forge on foreign soil. But most of all, Americanah is a story of transformation, of learning to stand in your own truth, even when that truth is shaped by a world that often doesn't understand you. Ifemelu is, at her core, a young woman searching for herself in the vast, often contradictory world of Nigeria and the United States. Born into a society where the boundaries of class, race, and expectations are tightly drawn, she finds herself boxed in before even knowing what it means to be free. Ifemelu was born in Nigeria, a country filled with deep cultural vibrancy, yet also marked by complexities. Nigeria was both a country of limitless opportunity and heavy restrictions. Ifemelu's father, a man who loved her fiercely but was still imprisoned by societal norms, always placed great expectations on her, telling her that the world was a place to conquer, but that conquest would require a certain kind of sacrifice. This expectation weighed on her for years, never fully escaping the notion that being a woman in a patriarchal society with limited resources meant she had to either fight or fade away. Her escape came through the promise of America, a land she believed would free her from these constraints. Leaving for America was not just about a journey across continents, it was a leap into the unknown, a leap into the idea of freedom. In Nigeria, Ifemelu had never considered herself black. Race wasn't a subject in her everyday life until she arrived in America. She came to realize that in a world where color and culture determined your place, she was marked by something she had never before thought about. Arriving in America, Ifemelu found herself swallowed by a world that demanded she pick a side, either assimilate or be rejected. The American dream, she soon realized, was for the fortunate few who didn't have to navigate the treacherous Edom waters of racial identity. She entered a world where people immediately placed her in a box labeled black, a label she had never worn before. Her experience as a Nigerian in America brought a profound shift in her perception of herself and the world around her. In America, Ifemelu learned that race wasn't just a factor, it was an institution, a system, and one that had very little to do with her understanding of her own identity. In Nigeria, she was simply a woman. But now, she was a black woman. In America, and that difference mattered more than any of her personal achievements or experiences. Ifemelu started to reflect on what it meant to be black in America, finding solace and voice in her blog, The Non-American Black. It became a space for her to express the complexities of her new reality, being neither truly African American nor an outsider, yet finding herself constantly defined by her skin color. Through the blog, Ifemelu found power. She wrote unapologetically about race, identity, and what it meant to be an African in America. The internet became her stage, her sanctuary, where she could voice the very things that kept her up at night. Her ability to articulate her thoughts in a way that resonated with others was both empowering and cathartic. Yet, the more Ifemelu wrote, the more she realized that race wasn't just a public matter, it was an internal battle too. Her experience of being black in America became more complex with each passing day. The struggle was not just about fitting in, but understanding. The internalized barriers created by a society that saw the blog was her truth. It was a raw space where Ifemelu could speak openly about her experiences, unburdened by the constraints of societal expectations. As her voice grew in popularity, Ifemelu began to realize that her blog had become not just a personal journey, but a social commentary. People who had once been strangers began to respond, sharing their own stories of race and belonging, creating a dialogue that resonated with many. The blog also served as a bridge between Ifemelu's past and present. Writing about race, particularly her experiences with racism and cultural alienation in America, allowed Ifemelu to unearth the hidden parts of herself. The parts she had never realized were so deeply affected by the world around her. Her blog, in a way, became a mirror for all those who had been silenced or ignored. As Ifemelu's influence grew, so did her internal conflict. She was no longer just a woman of Nigeria or America. She had become a symbol of a voice that had once been invisible. Her struggles, however, were not over, and the deeper she went into her exploration of race, the more she faced her own internal biases and the complexity of her identity. She wrote about the expectations placed on her as an African woman in America, but she also confronted the stereotypes she had internalized about African Americans. She challenged herself, too, to examine her assumptions and perceptions about what it meant to be truly free. And in this process, Ifemelu realized that freedom wasn't just about escaping her circumstances, it was about understanding them. Love for Ifemelu was complicated by race and expectations. Her relationship with Obinze, her first love, was built on a shared history and the kind of raw, uncomplicated connection that often happens when two people are in the same place emotionally. Their relationship began in Nigeria and had a promise of forever. When Ifemelu left for America, their bond was tested by distance, cultural differences, and the weight of their individual struggles. Obinze's own life took him down a different path, one filled with personal setbacks and heartbreak. Obinze, who had once dreamed of joining Ifemelu in America, found himself stuck in Nigeria, battling his own form of displacement. Their relationship strained under the weight of their different journeys. Obinze, who had been grounded in his Nigerian identity, could not fully understand Ifemelu's transformation in America. He too had to come to terms with the fact that home wasn't just a place, it was a feeling. And sometimes, home could be more elusive than a country or a city. In America, Ifemelu found herself navigating the complexities of love in a new country, where her race influenced her relationships in unexpected ways. She found herself dating men who didn't understand the nuance of her identity and her struggles with race, which made her question who she really was. Each relationship, whether with a man of color or a white man, brought to the surface different layers of Ifemelu's own identity. With each person, she learned more about herself, but also about the society that had shaped her. She came to realize that her relationships, like her identity, were deeply influenced by the world's perceptions of her. After years of living in America, Ifemelu returned to Nigeria, but it was not just a return to the land of her birth. it was a return to herself. The woman who left Nigeria was not the same woman who came back. Ifemelu had been changed by America, not just by the country, but by the experience of being made to see herself in ways she had never imagined. She returned to Nigeria, not just as a woman who had left home, but as a woman who had seen the world and had been irrevocably altered by it. Her return marked not just a physical journey, but an emotional and psychological one. She had spent years trying to reconcile who she was with the expectations of the world. But now, back in Nigeria, she could begin to ask herself the important questions. Who was she really? What did it mean to be home? And perhaps most importantly, what part of herself was she willing to leave behind? Ifemelu's story was never about seeking a home. It was about learning how to belong in the world, to herself. It was about understanding that identity is never static, but always evolving. Her journey was one of transformation, and in that transformation, she found the strength to stand in her truth, no matter where she was. Yes, if you found yourself relating to Ifemelu's journey, her struggle with identity, love, and race, let me know in the comments below. What part of her story did you find most powerful? Do you think it's possible to truly belong in a place? Or is identity a constant journey? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more stories that challenge, inspire, and open new doors of understanding. What should we explore next? Your thoughts will shape the journey.